AITA for revealing what my family planned to sign away at my aunt's birthday? I'm Kimberly, 38, and being the oldest daughter in my family never felt like a title. It felt like being handed the spare keys, the emergency contacts, the unpaid receipts, and the responsibility of smiling through Sunday dinner so nobody else had to feel uncomfortable. My mother, Lorraine, called me the responsible one when she needed something handled. The moment I asked why it was always my responsibility, I became distant, hard-hearted, or too proud. My brother Blake is 7 years younger than I am. Every mess he made arrived at my feet, wrapped in my mother's favorite sentence. He just needs one more chance. For years I gave him those chances. The amounts were usually small enough to make me feel petty for remembering them. $60 because his phone was about to be shut off. $180 because he had miscalculated his insurance payment. $400 because his rent was short and he swore he'd send it back by Friday. Friday would come and go. Blake would disappear for a week or two. Then he would text me about something unrelated, usually a joke or a picture from when we were kids, as if the missing money had dissolved into the air. Whenever I brought it up, Mom stepped in. "You know he's embarrassed," she would say. "Don't make him feel worse." I learned early that Blake's shame mattered more than my inconvenience. My father, Richard, had spent most of our lives trying to keep the peace. In practice, that meant letting Mom control the room. He wasn't cruel. He was quiet, which I eventually learned could do almost as much damage. Dad would sometimes pull me aside after a difficult dinner and say, "You know how your mother gets." As if that explained anything. As if knowing the storm was coming meant I should stand in the rain without a coat. The strange part was for a long time I didn't think of myself as mistreated. I thought I was useful. When Mom's car needed a new alternator and Blake promised to help but never showed up, the repair shop called me. I paid the invoice because Mom needed the car for medical appointments. That Sunday, she told everyone Blake had been such a help with the car. I was standing 3 feet away, putting food onto disposable plates. I looked at her. She gave me a tiny warning shake of her head. Later, while I wrapped leftover baked ziti in foil, she whispered, "You know how Blake gets when he feels judged. Just let him have this." I let him have it. When Dad had a hospital balance that insurance didn't fully cover, Mom called me crying. I paid enough to stop the collection notices because I didn't want Dad getting stressed while he was still recovering. Mom asked me not to tell anyone. "It's private," she said. "And Blake feels terrible that he can't contribute." 2 weeks later, I missed a family dinner because I was exhausted and had a headache. Mom told my Aunt Valerie that I barely called anymore. Valerie repeated it to my cousin Amanda, who started acting polite but cool around me. Not openly hostile. Just reserved, like she decided I was the kind of person who only showed up when I wanted something. That was how my mother damaged my reputation. Not with one giant lie, but with dozens of small edits. She removed the parts where I helped. She highlighted the parts where I said no. She gave Blake credit for effort he hadn't made. Then treated my silence as proof that I didn't care whether anyone noticed me. I told myself I was keeping the peace. The truth was I'd confused silence with loyalty. The first time I seriously pushed back was about 8 months before Aunt Valerie's birthday. Blake called me late one night and asked for $1,900. He wouldn't explain exactly what it was for. He kept saying it was a situation, and that he needed to fix it before Mom found out. "What kind of situation?" I asked. "Just debt." "What kind of debt? Why does it matter?" "I'm telling you I'll pay you back." "You've said that before." He went quiet, then laughed once without humor. "So you're keeping score now?" "I'm asking what I'm paying for." "You always have to make people feel small." That sentence sounded exactly like Mom. I told him no. The next morning, Mom called before I'd even finished my coffee. "Your brother came to you in a vulnerable moment," she said. "He asked for almost $2,000 and refused to tell me why. He is ashamed. He should be. He still owes me from the last 3 emergencies. Do you hear yourself? Everything is numbers with you. Because everyone calls me when there's a number due." She hung up on me. For the next few months, she became more aggressive about telling people I had changed. She used phrases like too busy for family, keeping score, and obsessed with money. She told one older uncle that I had become interested in Grandma's belongings only after Grandma died, which wasn't true. My grandmother had died 2 years earlier. She didn't leave behind a fortune. There was no estate worth fighting over. She had a few pieces of jewelry, some old dishes, framed photographs, handwritten recipes, a cedar chest, and small objects that mattered because they had been hers. The most meaningful item was a garnet ring. It wasn't enormous or flashy. The stone was deep red, oval and set in gold with tiny worn details around the band. Grandma wore it to church, family weddings, and every holiday dinner I could remember. When I was a teenager, she once let me try it on. "It isn't the price," she told me. "It's knowing whose hand wore it before yours." After she died, nobody made a final decision about the keepsakes. Everything was supposed to stay together until the family could sit down and agree. At least that's what I had been told. Mom kept most of the smaller items in a box at my parents' house. Dad said the ring was there. I didn't question it. Then around the same time Blake asked me for $1,900, the keepsake box was moved from a hallway closet into Dad's bedroom closet. Mom said she was worried about people opening it during gatherings. I remember thinking the explanation was odd. Nobody in the family wandered through closets looking for old jewelry. But I didn't investigate. I was tired of being accused of caring too much about money and property. I didn't want to prove Mom's point by asking where everything was. That was exactly what she was counting on. Aunt Valerie's birthday dinner was held at her house on a Saturday evening. It wasn't formal. Family members carried in foil-covered casserole dishes, deviled eggs, fruit salad, soda, and a store-bought cake with Valerie's name squeezed across the top in pink frosting. I brought a tray of brownies because Valerie liked the corner pieces. When I arrived, Amanda was arranging plastic forks beside a stack of paper plates. "Your mom said you weren't sure you'd make it," she said. "She didn't ask me." Amanda paused, then gave me a small shrug. Maybe she assumed. That was the first warning that Mom had been preparing the room before I arrived. Blake was already there, leaning against the kitchen counter with a soda in his hand. He avoided eye contact when I said hello. Mom hugged me too tightly and said, loudly enough for the people nearby to hear, "I'm glad you decided family was worth your time." I could have answered. Instead, I put the brownies on the counter and asked Valerie where she wanted the candles. Dinner started normally. People talked over one another. Someone complained about the cost of groceries. One of my uncles told the same story about a fishing trip that he had told at least 6 times. Half-empty soda cans collected along the windowsill. I thought maybe Mom would settle for her opening comment. Then after Valerie blew out the candles, Mom tapped a fork against her plastic cup. The room slowly quieted. She stood beside the kitchen counter holding several printed pages and one handwritten sheet. "I know tonight is supposed to be about Valerie," she began, "but birthdays remind us that time is precious. And sometimes families have to be honest before more time is wasted." Valerie's smile disappeared. Mom looked around the room, then at me. "I have spent years pretending that I wasn't heartbroken. I have made excuses for a daughter who only comes around when it benefits her. I have protected her pride even while she treated this family like a list of obligations." Blake stared into his cup. Dad looked at the floor. I felt heat climb into my face, but I kept my hands flat on my lap. Mom continued reading. Her voice trembled in that exact way it did when she wanted people to comfort her. "A mother shouldn't have to beg her own child to care. A daughter who only keeps score should not expect to claim family treasures after the people who truly showed up are gone." One older relative looked at me and sighed. "Maybe this is why your mother feels abandoned," she said. I looked at Mom. "Are you asking them to judge me? Or are you asking them to sign something?" The room went still. Mom's expression changed for half a second. The wounded mother disappeared, and I saw irritation. Then she smiled sadly and lifted the printed pages. I wrote a family statement. Nothing cruel. Just an honest record so there is no confusion later. She passed the first copy to Valerie. The document said that I had abandoned family responsibilities, had shown inappropriate interest in family property, and should relinquish any claim to Grandma's remaining keepsakes. It said Blake should be recognized by the family as the appropriate keeper, because he had maintained a loving and consistent relationship with our parents. Blake shifted in his chair. He didn't say a word. Valerie read the first page twice. Her finger stopped on one paragraph. "Lorraine," she said, "why does this say transfer?" Mom waved a hand. "It's just formal language. It says Kimberly relinquishes interest in physical family property and agrees to its transfer into Blake's care." "It means the same thing I just explained." "No," Valerie said slowly. "It sounds like more than feelings." Mom's voice sharpened. "Don't make it uglier than it is." Amanda took the page from Valerie and read it. She didn't look at me. That hurt more than the older relative's comment. I had known Amanda since we were children. We had spent summers sleeping on Grandma's living room floor, whispering until 2 in the morning. But in that moment, she seemed to believe Mom's version enough that she was willing to consider signing something against me without asking a single question. Mom laid pens on the table. "I think it's time we all admit who has actually been here for this family," she said. I pushed my chair back. Mom immediately raised her voice. "Of course. Walk away. That's what you do." Picked up my purse. "I'm not going to argue against a story none of you bothered to ask me about before tonight." "Kimberly, sit down," Dad said quietly. I looked at him. He had watched Mom accuse me of abandoning them after I paid his hospital balance. He had watched her place pens beside a statement that called Blake the responsible one. "No," I said. "Not this time." I left the brownies untouched on the counter. I made it to my car before my hand started shaking. For 10 minutes, I sat in the dark with the keys in the ignition and didn't drive. Through Valerie's front window, I could see people moving around the kitchen. Nobody came outside. That told me everything I needed to know about how the rest of the conversation was going. Mom sent 3 texts before I reached home. "You embarrassed yourself. Everyone sees it now." A loving daughter would have stayed and listened. I didn't answer. The next morning, Valerie called while I was standing at my kitchen counter. I had poured coffee, but it had already gone cold. She didn't apologize. She said, "Why did that paper say you were giving up claims to physical family property?" "I don't know. Lorraine told us it was about setting boundaries." "Did anyone sign?" "Not yet." The yet bothered me. "What exactly did she say after I left?" Valerie exhaled. "She cried. She said you had threatened to take Grandma's things, and that Blake was the only one she trusted to keep the family together." "I never threatened to take anything. That's why I'm calling." I waited. Valerie lowered her voice. "I believed your mother was hurt. I'm not sure I believe that paper was about hurt." After we hung up, I opened the drawer where I kept old receipts and printed records. I had always kept documentation. At first, it wasn't because I expected a confrontation. It was because family emergencies were messy. Mom would forget whether a bill had been paid. Blake would insist he had sent money when he hadn't. I started saving screenshots so I wouldn't have to rely on anyone's memory. I searched my phone for Blake's name. There were years of messages. "Can you spot me until Friday? Please don't tell Mom. I just need this not to become a thing. You know I'm good for it." Then there were Mom's messages. "Can you cover the repair?" Blake tried. "Please don't mention the hospital bill. Your father is embarrassed. Bring dinner. Blake is overwhelmed. Don't make him feel judged." The records weren't dramatic by themselves. That was what made them powerful. They showed a routine. I opened my payment apps and scrolled through transfers. Some were small. Others were not. $85 to Blake. $240 to Mom. $600 to Blake. $1,150 to the auto repair shop. $900 toward Dad's hospital balance. $72 for groceries before a holiday dinner. $480 to stop Blake's power from being disconnected. I printed screenshots and blacked out unrelated information with a marker. Then I listened to saved voicemails. Most were ordinary. Mom asking me to pick something up. Blake explaining why a payment was late. Dad reminding me about a family meal. Then I found one from 9 months earlier. Mom's voice was low and urgent. "Kim, please call me back. Your brother made a mistake, and if people find out what he did, it will destroy him. I know you're angry, but please, just let me handle the family. Don't start asking questions right now." At the time, I had assumed she meant Blake's debt. He had called me the night before asking for $1,900, so the voicemail seemed connected to that. Now the wording felt different. What he did. Don't start asking questions. Let me handle the family. I listened 3 more times. Then I checked the dates. The voicemail came 4 days after Mom told me the keepsake box had been moved. I called Dad. He answered after 6 rings. Is Mom there? I asked. No. She went out. I need to ask you about Grandma's ring. Silence. Not confusion. Not surprise. Silence. Dad. He cleared his throat. Can you come by? I drove over that afternoon. Dad was waiting at the kitchen table. He had both hands around a mug he wasn't drinking from. On the table was an old paper envelope with yellowed edges. He looked older than he had at the birthday dinner. I should have given you this months ago, he said. What is it? I kept thinking your mother would tell the truth. I sat across from him. Dad pushed the envelope toward me but didn't let go immediately. I stayed quiet because I thought quiet was peace, he said. It wasn't. Then he released it. Inside was a photocopied inventory of Grandma's keepsakes. The list was written in ordinary language. Garnet ring in small blue box. Pearl earrings. Silver bracelet with broken clasp. Recipe cards. Wedding photograph. 2 china serving bowls. The ring had a note beside it. Kimberly to safeguard until family decides together. There was also a handwritten page in Grandma's writing. Kim, keep my red ring safe for now. I don't want anybody arguing over it while emotions are high. Let everyone settle down, then decide together. You're the one who remembers where things go. It wasn't a legal document. It didn't magically make me the owner. But it made one thing clear. Grandma had trusted me to hold the ring temporarily. I had never been given the chance. Beneath the note was a receipt from an estate jewelry buyer. The description read, vintage gold ring, oval garnet worn detailing. Seller Blake. His printed name and signature were at the bottom. The sale date was 9 months earlier. The amount was $1,850. My stomach turned cold. That was almost exactly what he had asked me for. There was one more piece of paper. A small note in Mom's handwriting with the buyer's phone number and 4 words underneath. Do not mention to Kim. I looked at Dad. You knew. I found the receipt in your mother's desk when I was looking for tax papers. When? Before Valerie's dinner. My voice stayed calm, but I had to grip the edge of the table. You sat there while she asked the family to sign against me. Dad looked down. I was afraid it would blow everything up. It already had. I know. No, Dad. You were afraid the truth would make the explosion loud enough that you couldn't pretend it wasn't happening. He flinched. I hated hurting him. I also knew that softening the sentence would give him somewhere to hide. Did Mom give Blake access to the box? I asked. Dad nodded. She said he wanted to photograph the items so we could make a list. And then he sold the ring. Yes. What did she do when she found out? She cried. Then she called the buyer. It had already been resold. I stared at the receipt. So she knew it was gone. Yes. And instead of telling the family, she started telling people I was obsessed with Grandma's things. Dad's mouth tightened. Yes. The whole strategy became clear at once. Mom needed me to look greedy before anyone asked where the ring went. She needed the family to believe Blake had been loyal and I had been absent. Then she needed a signed statement recognizing Blake as the keeper of the remaining items. If people accepted that story, the missing ring would become part of a larger transfer nobody questioned too closely. Even if the document had no legal force, it would give Mom what she valued most. A family-approved version of events. I took the envelope home. For the next 2 days I worked at my dining table. I didn't post online. I didn't send accusations into the family group chat. I didn't call Mom to demand a confession. I made copies. I organized the records in the order that made the truth easiest to understand. First, the money I had paid over the years. Then Blake's messages asking for help and promising repayment. Then the transcript of Mom's voicemail. Then the ring receipt. Finally, Grandma's note and the inventory. I made a 1-page timeline. On one side, I listed what Mom had told relatives. Kimberly never helps. Kimberly only cares about inheritance. Blake is the one who shows up. On the other side, I listed dates, payments, and documents. I blacked out account numbers and unrelated purchases. I labeled each copy. I put everything into a thick paper envelope. I wasn't building a weapon. I was building a record. Valerie called me again on Wednesday. Lorraine wants to bring the statement to the barbecue this weekend, she said. So she's trying again. She says the first dinner became too emotional. Because I left? Because I asked what transfer meant. I almost laughed. Will everyone be there? Most people. Good. Valerie was quiet for a moment. Kimberly, is there something I should know? Yes. Are you going to tell me now? No. I'm going to show everyone at the same time. That way, nobody can say I changed the story depending on who I was talking to. She didn't argue. The barbecue was at my parents' house. By the time I arrived, relatives were moving between the backyard and the kitchen, carrying paper cups and serving spoons. Hamburgers were on the grill. Someone had left the back door open, and the air conditioning was losing a fight with the summer heat. Mom was wearing the expression she used when she believed she had regained control. She greeted me in the kitchen. I'm glad you came, she said. I said I would. I hope you're ready to act like an adult. I am. Her eyes dropped to the envelope in my bag. What is that? Paperwork. Her face tightened. Before she could ask more, Amanda came in carrying a bowl of pasta salad. She looked between us and quickly turned toward the refrigerator. For the first hour, nobody mentioned the statement. Mom waited until everyone had eaten. Then she gathered people into the kitchen and dining area, where the printed pages were already sitting on the counter beside several pens. She didn't use the handwritten speech this time. She had changed tactics. I don't want another scene, she said. I only want closure. I stood near the end of the counter with my bag over one shoulder. Mom touched the statement. Some people think love is a ledger. I don't. I think family means showing up without asking what you get back. One cousin looked at me. Why can't you just let your mother have peace? He asked. I took the envelope from my bag and placed it on the counter. The old paper made a soft, flat sound. Mom's eyes fixed on it. Before anyone signs anything or calls me ungrateful again, I said, you should know what I've been covering. Mom stepped toward me. Do not make a scene. You made me the scene. I brought the receipts. Family matters should stay private. You announced your version at a birthday dinner. That was different. No, it was just unopposed. The room became quiet in the way families do before they become angry. People were still processing which side they were expected to take. I opened the thick envelope. I'm not asking anyone to believe my feelings, I said. I'm correcting facts. I handed the first set of copies to Valerie. They were transfer screenshots and paid invoices. She passed them to Amanda, then to the others. The first page showed the car repair. Valerie looked at Mom. You told me Blake handled this. Mom folded her arms. He tried. I paid it, I said. He did not. Amanda turned to the next page. This is Richard's hospital balance. Yes. She paid that. One of my uncles asked. Dad stared at the floor. Yes, he said. Amanda looked at the date. Her face changed. This was the week Lorraine told me you couldn't be bothered to call. I called, I said. I also paid the balance she asked me to keep private. Mom's voice rose. So now you want applause for helping your own father? No. I want you to stop using my silence as evidence that I did nothing. I handed out the next set of pages. Blake's messages. His promises. His disappearing acts. His request for $1,900. Blake finally spoke. You're really showing private texts? You sat beside Mom while she called me selfish in front of everyone. That doesn't mean you get to put my business out there. Your business became my reputation. He pushed away from the wall. I never asked you to make yourself look like a saint. No. You asked me for money and let Mom make me look like a villain when I stopped. Mom stepped between us. Blake was struggling. So was I. You have always been stronger. That was never permission to use me. I handed Valerie the voicemail transcript. Mom saw the first line and went pale. What is that? Amanda asked. A voicemail Mom left me 9 months ago. Mom reached for the paper. Valerie pulled it back. Read it, I said. Amanda read the transcript silently. Then she looked at Mom. What did Blake do? Mom's mouth opened but no answer came. Amanda turned to me. Can we hear it? I took out my phone. Mom's voice filled the kitchen. Kim, please call me back. Your brother made a mistake, and if people find out what he did, it will destroy him. I know you're angry, but please, just let me handle the family. Don't start asking questions right now. The recording ended. Nobody spoke. A paper cup tipped over near the sink because someone bumped it with an elbow. That small sound felt louder than it should have. Blake stared at the floor. Mom looked at Dad. You saved that? She asked me. Yes. You save everything. Because you rewrite everything. I pulled out the ring receipt. This time I gave the first copy to Amanda. She read it slowly. What ring? Someone asked. Amanda didn't answer immediately. Then she said, Grandma's garnet ring. Every face turned toward Blake. He moved toward the doorway. An older uncle stepped into his path. No, he said. Sit down. You let your sister take the blame long enough. I'm not sitting here for this, Blake snapped. You sat here for Lorraine's speech. That wasn't my idea. But you did not correct it, I said. Blake looked at Mom as if waiting for her to speak for him. She did. He was in trouble. He panicked. Valerie held up the receipt. He sold your mother's ring? He made a mistake. 9 months ago? He planned to fix it. Blake seized the sentence. I was going to buy it back. I placed a copy of the buyer's note on the counter. The buyer already resold it. His face hardened. You called them. Dad and Mom already did. That is how Mom knew it was gone. All eyes turned to Dad. He finally raised his head. Lorraine knew before Valerie's birthday dinner, he said. Mom spun toward him. Richard. I should have spoken sooner. Do not do this. I stayed quiet because I thought quiet was peace, he said. It wasn't. Mom's eyes filled with tears. For most of my life, that would have ended the confrontation. Someone would have touched her shoulder. Someone would have told the rest of us to calm down. Nobody moved. Valerie picked up Mom's statement and held it beside the ring receipt. You were asking us to recognize Blake as the keeper of the remaining property after he had already sold one of the items. I was trying to protect this family. From what? Amanda asked. Knowing the truth? From being destroyed by judgment. I almost admired how quickly Mom turned the conversation away from the missing ring and toward everyone else's cruelty. She looked at me. You have always wanted to punish your brother. No. I wanted him to repay what he borrowed and stop creating emergencies for everyone else. You hated that he needed me. I hated that you used me to rescue him, then called him devoted and me selfish. Mom pressed a hand to her chest. After everything I sacrificed, this is what I get. I pulled out Grandma's handwritten note and the keepsake inventory. This is what Grandma asked for. I passed the copies around. Amanda read the note first. Kim, keep my red ring safe for now, she read softly. Let everyone settle down, then decide together. She looked at Mom. You never gave it to her. Mom's voice was barely audible. Your grandmother wrote many things. That is her handwriting, Valerie said. It doesn't make Kimberly the owner. I never said it did, I replied. It proves Grandma trusted me to safeguard it. Mom kept that from me, gave Blake access, and then told everyone I was greedy so nobody would believe me when I asked where it went. One cousin leaned against the counter and rubbed his forehead. So the statement was supposed to make Blake the official keeper after the ring was already gone. Mom shook her head rapidly. No. That is not fair. Then explain the wording, Valerie said. Explain relinquish. Explain transfer. Explain why the document never mentioned the ring. Mom began crying harder. You are humiliating your own mother, she said to me. You humiliated me with lies. I'm answering with proof. Her face changed. For 1 second the tears stopped. There it was again. Not grief but anger that the method had failed. Blake pulled out a chair and sat down heavily. I was desperate, he said. For what? Valerie asked. He looked around the room. Debt. What kind of debt? Personal debt. That is not an answer, one uncle said. Blake rubbed both hands over his face. I had credit cards. A loan. Late fees. It had gotten out of control. And you sold the ring for $1,850? Amanda asked. I thought I could replace it before anyone noticed. With what money? He didn't answer. Mom moved toward him. Everyone has made mistakes. Valerie held up a hand. No. You do not get to turn this into a speech about everyone. That was the first moment I saw Mom understand that she no longer controlled the room. Not everyone turned on her. Real families are messier than that. One aunt said nothing and kept staring at the papers. A cousin muttered that we shouldn't be doing this in front of everyone, then left early. Another relative said, Lorraine was wrong, but maybe this did not need to be public. I looked at him. She made it public. He had no answer. Amanda stepped closer to me. I'm sorry, she said. I thought you were being cold. I didn't know you were being used. Her apology was not dramatic. That made it matter more. I repeated things I never checked, she continued. That was wrong. I nodded. Thank you. Valerie gathered Mom's statement into one stack. Nobody signs this, she said. Nobody signs anything until every remaining item is accounted for. Mom wiped her face. You have no authority to decide that. Neither do you. Dad went to the bedroom and returned with the keepsake box. Mom watched him carry it into the kitchen like he was betraying her. Valerie cleared space on the counter. One by one, we compared the contents to Grandma's old inventory. The pearl earrings were there. The silver bracelet with the broken clasp was there. The photographs and recipe cards were there. One china serving bowl was missing, but Dad remembered it had been given to a relative years earlier. The garnet ring was gone. The empty blue ring box was still inside. Amanda held it in her palm and looked at Blake. He stared away. Valerie found a legal pad and wrote down every item. Then she turned the page toward Blake. You are going to sign an acknowledgement that you sold the ring, she said. Blake gave a bitter laugh. What is this, court? No. It is the written transparency your mother suddenly wanted 5 minutes ago. I'm not signing anything. An uncle crossed his arms. Then we can all stop pretending you plan to make it right. Mom tried one more time. He does not need to be cornered. I looked at her. That sentence is why we are here. Blake stared at the legal pad for a long time. Finally, he wrote that he had removed and sold the garnet ring without family permission. He included the amount he received and the date. He did not write an apology. I didn't ask for one. An apology extracted under pressure would not restore the ring. Valerie took the paper and added it to the inventory copies. Mom looked at me with pure resentment. You got what you wanted. No, I said. What I wanted was for you to tell the truth before trying to make the whole family sign a lie. You wanted to turn them against me. I wanted them to stop being used against me. She opened her mouth, but I didn't give her another opening. I'm going to be clear about what happens now. The room quieted again. I will not send you or Blake another $1. I will not cover his rent, debt, utilities, repairs, or emergencies. I will not pay a bill in secret so he can receive credit in public. Blake shook his head. Fine. I looked at him. It is fine. Then I turned back to Mom. I will not participate in family paperwork unless every item and every purpose is written out honestly. If you tell people I abandoned you, stole from you, or refused to help, I will send them the relevant records. Her eyes narrowed. So you're threatening me? No. I'm telling you the lie will no longer travel alone. Dad closed his eyes for a moment. I continued. I will not organize every dinner, solve every problem, pay for every shortage, and then apologize because my boundaries made someone uncomfortable. I'm done being the villain in a story I kept paying to fix. Mom folded her arms. You will regret speaking to your mother this way. Maybe. But I already regret how long I let you speak about me. I picked up the original envelope and placed Grandma's note back inside. Valerie asked if she could keep copies of the inventory and Blake's acknowledgement. I agreed. Dad asked if I wanted to take the remaining keepsakes with me. No, I said. They should be inventoried and stored where more than one person has access. No secret moves. No side agreements. That mattered to me. I didn't want to replace Mom's control with my own. The issue had never been winning the objects. It was stopping the lie built around them. I left before dessert. This time Amanda walked me to my car. I should have called you before believing her, she said. Yes. She looked surprised by the direct answer, then nodded. You're right. I don't need everyone to choose me, I said. I need people to stop signing onto stories they never checked. I won't do that again. Over the next week, the family reacted in uneven ways. Valerie created a written inventory of the keepsakes and sent copies to the adults who had been present. She stored the box with Dad, but put a small seal across the lid so any opening would be obvious. It wasn't elegant, but it was better than guilt and whispers. Amanda called twice. The second time, she told me exactly which claims Mom had repeated over the previous year. I corrected the ones that mattered. I didn't defend every missed dinner or every unanswered call. Some relatives apologized. Some sent vague messages like, I'm sorry things got so complicated, which was easier than admitting they had judged me. One cousin said I had been right but too prepared, as if the amount of evidence was somehow more disturbing than the years of lying that made it necessary. I didn't argue. Blake sent one text. You happy now? I replied once. No, but I'm done paying for you to avoid consequences. Then I blocked his payment requests. Mom called repeatedly for 3 days. I let every call go to voicemail. Her messages moved through predictable stages. First, anger. You have poisoned the family against me. Then grief. I cannot believe my own daughter would do this. Then illness. I have not slept. My blood pressure is terrible. Then generosity. I forgive you even if you are not ready to apologize. I saved the voicemails but didn't respond. On the 4th day, she sent a message to Amanda claiming I had stolen private financial information and manipulated Dad into giving me Grandma's papers. Amanda forwarded it to me and wrote I asked for proof. She changed the subject. That was the first real sign that the family dynamic had shifted. Mom could still tell stories. People were no longer accepting them automatically. Dad came to see me 2 weeks after the barbecue. He stood in my doorway holding the old blue ring box. I thought you should have this, he said. I didn't take it. Why? Because your grandmother wanted you to keep the ring. The ring is gone. He looked down at the box. I know. Keep it with the inventory. He nodded but didn't leave. I'm sorry, he said. I waited. He swallowed. I'm sorry I watched your mother say those things and said nothing. I knew about the ring. I knew you paid the hospital bill. I knew enough to stop her. That was the first apology in the family that named an actual failure. Why didn't you? I asked. I was afraid she would make home unbearable. So you let her make me unbearable to everyone else. His eyes filled, but he nodded. Yes. I didn't comfort him. That was difficult. I had spent my whole life rushing to make other people feel better when they finally admitted they hurt me. This time I let the discomfort stay where it belonged. Dad placed the empty box back in his pocket. I'm going to do better, he said. I'll believe the pattern, not the promise. He nodded again. That's fair. Mom never gave me a real apology. The closest she came was a letter saying she was sorry for how the situation unfolded. She wrote 3 pages about her fear for Blake, the pressure of motherhood, and the pain of being misunderstood. She didn't say she was sorry for calling me selfish. She didn't say she was sorry for hiding the ring sale. She didn't say she was sorry for asking the family to sign away my place in the story she had rewritten. I read the letter once, put it in the envelope with the rest of the documents and didn't answer. Blake did not repay the money from the ring. He also didn't repay me. But the family stopped treating his problems like weather that simply happened to him. When his power was nearly disconnected again, He called Valerie. She told him to contact the utility company and arrange a payment plan. When he complained that nobody cared, she said, "People care. That does not mean Kimberly pays." Mom was furious that Valerie refused to rescue him. Valerie told her, "I believed you were hurt. I did not know you were hiding paperwork. I'm not making that mistake twice." For the first time, Blake had to sit inside the consequences of his own choices without Mom handing the bill to me. For the first time, Mom had to tell a story without an automatic audience. For the first time, Dad had to choose between silence and honesty while knowing silence would be noticed. And for the first time, I let them all be angry without rushing to fix it. Sunday dinners continued without me for a while. I heard they were quieter. There were fewer elaborate meals because I wasn't ordering the food. Nobody remembered to bring extra containers for leftovers. Dad started writing down who paid for what. Valerie refused to let Mom announce that Blake had helped, unless she could say exactly how. None of that repaired the ring. None of it returned the years I spent mistaking usefulness for love. But it changed what would happen next. I no longer answered calls that began with, "Don't be mad, but we need you." I stopped paying money to prevent arguments that needed to happen. I stopped explaining my boundaries until they sounded like requests. When relatives asked why I wasn't attending a gathering, I answered honestly and briefly. I'm taking space. I didn't provide a defense. I didn't list what had been done to me. The people who wanted facts already had them. Months later, Amanda invited me to lunch. She brought a small folder. Inside were copies of Grandma's recipe cards that she had scanned for the family. She had included the brownie recipe Grandma used to make when we were children. "I thought you should have these," she said. I smiled. "Thank you." She looked embarrassed. "I used to think your boundaries were arrogance." "I know. I think I believed that because it was easier than asking why the responsible person was always the one being blamed." That sentence stayed with me. Families often choose a simple villain because a simple villain protects everyone else from examining the system. Mom had made me the villain because I was organized enough to expose what she was hiding and loyal enough not to do it. She was wrong about the second part lasting forever. I didn't tear the family apart. I just stopped holding the broken pieces with my bare hands. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.